Hey everyone, my name is Olaf and today I'm going to show you how to make a Gatling gun in Blender. We're going to start off in this first part by modeling the Gatling gun, and then in the next part, which lasts for about 7 minutes, we're going to animate it. It's going to be fairly quick and fairly easy, so let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start off by switching from blend render to cycles render for better shading. And then you want to click X to delete the default cube, and then you want to go into create and add a plane. This is going to be the floor and the walls of this scene. So click S to scale it up, and then go into tab to go into edit mode, or just switch from object mode to edit mode down here, and then click E to extrude the face up. Then click X to delete the top face, and then zoom in, and make sure to add a new object in object mode. So I'm going to add a cylinder, then click S, then Z to scale it on the Z axis. Then click G, then Z to grab it on the Z axis. Then click S, then Z again to scale it on the Z axis. And click S, then Shift Z to only scale it on the X and the Y axis. Now go into edit mode and add mean crease to all of the edges around the cylinder. So hold in Alt to select the whole circle of edges, and then click N to go into the properties of the cylinder, and then increase the mean crease value to 1. Which is going to make the cylinder stay a cylinder when you add subdivision surface. And it's not going to subdivide the top part and the lower part of the cylinder. As you see now, it's subdivided, but not on the top and the lower face of the cylinder. So let's select the top face, then grab it, so click G set to grab it on the Z axis, then left click to confirm, and then click E again to extrude, then click S to scale it down, left click to confirm, then click E again and then S to scale it down even more with a new extrusion. Then click E again and scale it down or extrude it down a little bit on the Z axis, and then extrude again and scale it down. So click S to scale it down. Now, as you saw in the final animation, this is kind of the platform for the Gatling gun. So you might adjust the size a little bit, maybe scale it down or up. But I'm going to extrude it upwards now, so click E to extrude, and extrude it on the Z axis. Okay, then left click to confirm, E again, and then click S and scale it down a little bit. We're going to make a little hole, so click E again to extrude it downwards. And this is where the leg is going to go down in the platform and rotate as well. So I'm going to duplicate this face, so click Shift D to duplicate it, and then click Control P and separate by selection so that we have two separate objects. And then select the new object and click E to extrude it on the Z axis. What you're going to notice with this tutorial is that we will use extruding and scaling a lot to make the models, and also using a lot of basic objects to create the shapes we want to have, especially using cylinders, cubes, and planes. But it's kind of the same way in drawing actually, that you create shapes from basic objects. And as you can see again, I'm just extruding and scaling it and extruding it again on the Z axis. And this is going to be the part where I'm going to click Shift D again to duplicate the face and click Control P to separate it and make a new object. And this is going to be kind of the rotation platform for the actual Gatling gun. So I'm going to scale it up, click S to scale, left click to confirm, and then I'm going to extrude it upwards on the Z axis. Maybe scale it a little bit more as well, but click E to extrude it on the Z axis. And now we have the basic platform for the actual Gatling gun. So I'm going to save the first file now. So give it a name and save it wherever you want on the computer. Now that we are done with the platform, we can start adding the actual Gatling gun to the scene in Blender. So you're going to go to numpad 3 to go to the side view, and numpad 1 is the front view. And then you want to left click to add a 3D cursor, which is where the new object is going to appear when we add it. And then click Shift A to add a new object, and we're going to add a cube. Click S set to scale it on the Z axis, S to scale it down. Click S, then Y to scale it on the Y-axis, and then left click to confirm. I'm going to grab it a little bit on the Z-axis, so click G set to grab it on the Z-axis, left click to confirm. And you might be wondering why I'm not giving you exact sizes and exact scales for the objects, but that is because I think it will be cooler for you guys if you actually make unique object and not just copying the exact scales that I give you. Okay, so go into edit mode, and then I'm going to click Ctrl R to add a loop cut, which is going to give you more edges. And then select the top face on the right and click E to extrude it up. And this is going to be the kind of the side object, which is going to hold up the rotation cylinder, which is going to rotate the actual Gatling gun, as you can remember in the final animation. And then I'm going to mirror the object on the cylinder, which is going to put it on the other side. So mirror it on the x-axis. And then I'm going to left click to add a 3D cursor, which is obviously going to put your new cylinder there. So click Shift A to add a cylinder. And then you want to click R, then Y, then 90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the Y-axis. Or you can just rotate it on the X-axis first and then rotate it on the Z-axis. Just make sure that you have it on the correct Y value. So click G, then Y to grab it on the Y-axis. And you can also grab it a little bit on the X-axis to make sure that the object is, yeah, I think this looks better. So just grab it on the X and the Y-axis and find the best location for you. Okay, go into tab to go into edit mode, and then click G, then X to grab the face on the X-axis, and then click left click to confirm. And now we're going to select the each end of the cylinder and increase the mean increase value to 1, which is going to keep these two faces flat when we subdivide the object, as we have done before already. So click Add Modifier and add a Subdivision Surface Modifier, and increase the subdivision on the view and render to 3, and then go into each of the cubes that we made earlier and click Ctrl B for bevel and use the mouse wheel to add even more edges. That is going to give the kind of like sidebars or side objects that holds up the rotation cylinder. It's going to give them soft edges, which make them look better. Click Shift X to scale the cylinder on the Y and Z axis, and then click File, click Save As to save the file, and I'm going to give it a new number, which is going to make this a separate file. So if you want to go back to an older file, you can always do that. I think that's more convenient. So add a new 3D cursor. So left click to add a 3D cursor, and now we're going to add the kind of the turret or the base of the Gatling gun itself. So click R, then X, then 90 to rotate the cylinder 90 degrees on the X-axis, and we're obviously going to grab it a little bit backwards. So click G, Y to grab it on the Y-axis, and then we need to go into edit mode to add some mean increase to it. So face select, hold and shift to add both faces, and then increase the mean increase value to 1. Then go into add modifier and add a subdivision surface modifier. As you can see, our actions are kind of repetitive now. We're doing a lot of the same actions, but it works and it looks good in the end, so it doesn't really matter. So the next step in this tutorial, I think first off we need to scale it up a little bit more. So click S to scale and left click to confirm. And as you can see, I think we need to make the side holders, or whatever you want to call them, we need to make them a little bit taller. So I'm going to grab the cylinders on the Z-axis, and then I'm going to edit these two, and going to click set to go into wireframe mode, and B to box select, and make sure to grab the top faces on the Z-axis. So click G set to grab them on the Z-axis, and left click to confirm. I think this looks a little bit better, gives the cylinder or the Gatling gun more room to rotate up and down, which is nice. Okay, so we're going to start modeling the actual Gatling gun, and I'm going to go to the front view and then move to the back of the Gatling gun, and then I'm going to grab the back face on the y-axis. So click G, then Y to grab it on the y-axis. And now I'm going to extrude it, so click E to extrude, and then I'm going to scale it a little bit downwards, so click S to scale it down. Left click to confirm, and I'm going to click Control B for some bevel. We're just going to give the edges, make the edges a little bit smoother, and I'm going to do the same to this line of edges. So holding Alt, we need to go to Edge Select. Click A to deselect everything, and then click Alt to select the whole circle of edges, and then click Control B to add bevel. And make sure to use the mouse wheel to add a few of them, to add a few more edges, so that the edge of the back is a little bit smoother. Okay, so let's start modeling the front part of the Gatling gun. So go to Face Select, select the front face, and then we need to start extruding. So click E to extrude, left click to confirm, around, let's say, here, and then click E again. And I'm going to use the same modeling technique as we used before, just a lot of extruding and then scaling afterwards. So I'm going to extrude again and scale it down. And then I'm going to scale it backwards on the y-axis, like this. And then we need to scale it down a little bit because I want to make it a little bit smooth. And like this. And then we need to select all the edges because we need to make the edges a little bit smoother. And we're going to do that with bevel again. So holding Alt to select the whole circle. Then again, you want to click Control B to add bevel. And the more you scroll your mouse wheel, the more edges you will add. So just add a few. And as you can see, it's a little bit smoother now and it looks better. And we're going to do the same thing with the other rings of edges. So click Control B again and add some more edges with the mouse wheel, and then left click to confirm, like this. It's starting to look better. And I'm going to save this file, click Save As, and I'm going to give it a new name. This is going to be Gat tutorial number 4. And I'm going to have a separate file for each step so that I can go back if I fail or something, which is always useful, and you should do the same. Okay, numpad 1 to go to the front view, and we're going to start adding the cylinder for the barrels of the gun. I just want to say that if you think this is kind of repetitive and you know how to do this by now, maybe you should watch the speed art version of this tutorial, which only lasts for 3 minutes, and you will see all the steps. Just speed it up really fast, I think 20 times, so that you don't have to watch like the same actions over and over again. But now I just scale down the cylinder, rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis, or x-axis actually. And I'm just going to model it the same way as I did to all the other parts. So I'm going to face select. First we need to make sure the increase value is put to 1 on both the back and the front of the cylinder. So holding Shift to select both of them, and then increase the increase value to 1. Okay. And then we need to go into Add Modifier, add Subdivision Surface, and increase the subdivisions to 3 on both the view and the render. And now it's time to start making the actual barrels themselves. So click G set to grab it on the Z axis. And then I'm going to grab the face. Oops, we need to go and select only the front edge, or the front face, and grab it GY on the Y axis, like this. I think we need to grab a little bit more. So GY to grab it on the Y axis, left click to confirm, around here. Okay, and then we need to zoom in to the front of the barrel and click E, then S to scale it down, just like we've done so many times before. Scale it down, and then click E and extrude it backwards until you reach the end. So click Set to go into wireframe and make sure it's all the way in, which is not going to mess up your animation. Okay. And then we need to go into tab again, and I'm going to select the edges, and guess what? I'm going to bevel again. So as you can see, we're doing the same actions over and over again, but I'm sure if you're new to this, you're going to learn these techniques very well by now, which is a good thing. You're actually learning. Okay, Control B again to add more bevel edges, or whatever you want to call it, like this. It already looks good. So now we need to duplicate these, and there are many ways you can duplicate them, but I usually like to go to Add Modifier and then add or generate array, and I'm going to copy it on the y-axis. So click, give it a value, and it actually has to be a negative value because it's going to be arrayed downwards like this. Okay, I'm going to save it again. So give it a new name, and I'm going to save it as Gatling tutorial number 5. So we're starting to have a few files now, but it's always useful, as I said, to have many files so that you can go back to them afterwards if you messed up something. Okay, so we need to do the same thing on the other directions, and as you can see, we will need to edit these values a lot because they're not going to be aligned perfectly. Okay, and the next step is to start duplicating these two cylinders so that we're going to have 6 cylinders in total. So click Shift D to duplicate, and then click R, then Y, then 90 to rotate in 90 degrees on the y-axis. And then I'm going to grab them, so click G, then Shift Y to only grab them on the Z and x-axis. And now we need to decrease the value on the array modifier like this to make sure that they fit properly inside the, what do you even call it, like the hole that we have on the Gatling gun for the barrels. So just adjust the values until they fit properly. You need to do a lot of adjusting, as I said in this tutorial, but you're going to learn a lot from it if you don't know it already. Okay, click Shift D again and grab them on the Z-axis like this, and again we need to decrease the value on the array modifier to make sure they fit inside a hole like this, and just grab them on the x-axis again. So click G, then Z, then G, then X to grab them on the x-axis. Yeah, it's going to take some time before they fit properly, but you're not going to see it that well in the animation anyways. Just make sure they're like around the place where you want to have them. Okay, we need to decrease this value again, or increase it because it's a negative value, and I'm going to grab it on the Z-axis. I'm going to grab this one upwards on the Z-axis to move them closer to each other. Okay, these are not going to be perfect, but as you can see in the final animation, it gets almost perfect. It looks almost perfect. You can't really tell that they're like not mathematically perfectly aligned together. Okay, click G, then Z again. Just try to make sure they're forming some kind of circle together like this. I think it's starting to look good, so we might move on soon. The most important part is that they're properly aligned to the circle or the hole around it. So just try to make the distance between the end of each circle about the same, so that they look okay. Because people are only going to see the outer part of the Gatling gun, so just make sure the outer part is properly aligned, and the rest doesn't really matter that much for you. visual part of the animation. Okay, I'm going to save it now, and I'm going to go on with the tutorial. I'm actually going to add even more cylinders, but this time they're going to overlap these barrels that we already added. So let's left click to add a 3D cursor. So yeah, we just need to left click. So left click to add a 3D cursor, and then add a cylinder. So click Shift A to add a cylinder, and then click R, then X, then 90 to rotate the cylinder 90 degrees on the X-axis, and then scale it down on the Y-axis like this. And we need to scale them even more down with S. Then click G, then Y to grab it on the Y-axis like this, and just make sure it's properly aligned with the rest of the cylinders so that it actually looks good. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Okay, maybe scale it down a little bit more. I click G, set to grab it on the Z-axis, and let's select each face on both sides and add some mean crease and make the mean crease value to 1, and add subdivision surface and make subdivisions to 3 and 3 on both the view and the render, and then click Shift D to duplicate it and grab it on the Y-axis like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is to hold in Shift and select all of the objects on the Gatling gun, and then start scaling and grabbing them on different axes. So just hold in Shift and select all the parts of the Gatling gun like this, and just make sure everything is selected, and then select the cylinder and the side of the Gatling gun, and then click S to scale it up like this, and left click to confirm. And now we need to grab it a little bit to make sure it's aligned with the lower part of the rotation, what do you call it, like rotation wheel. And then I'm going to grab it on the y-axis, so click GY to grab it on the y-axis, or whatever axis you need to grab it on to make sure it's aligned with the lower part. GZ to grab it on the z-axis again. And what I'm noticing right now is that it kind of looks a little bit off balance. So we need to balance out the Gatling part of the gun and make sure it's grabbed a little bit backwards. So we need to deselect the parts we want to deselect, and we need to deselect the lower part of the object. And what I'm doing now is to first go into wireframe mode to deselect with the circle select, which is C, and then use the middle mouse button to deselect. Okay, so I'm going to grab it, so GY to grab the Gatling gun on the y-axis. And now I need to grab the cylinder back so that it fits. So click G, then Y to grab it on the y-axis. As I said, I am not giving you the scales of the objects, so every model is going to be unique, so you might not need to follow every step of the tutorial, especially when I'm just editing the sizes of the cylinder, for example. But I'm going to scale it down on the wrong direction or axis right now, so I need to click Control Z to go back, and then I'm going to scale it on the x-axis. So click S, then X to scale it on the x-axis if you need to scale your cylinder down on the x-axis. Okay, I think it's starting to look good, so I'm going to add the handles on the back of the Gatling gun. And you need to left click to add a 3D cursor, as you've done many times before already in this tutorial, and then add a cube. I'm going to scale it down with S, and left click to confirm, and then we need to go into edit mode, and I'm going to start modeling the cube to become a handle with the use of the Subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to grab a little bit on the x-axis, tab to go into edit mode, and I'm going to select the back face and click E to extrude. And then I'm going to add some loop cuts to add some extra edges. So click Ctrl R to add loop cuts, just one loop cut actually. And then I'm going to select the bottom face, so go to face select, and you might want to grab the face a little bit outward so that you can get a larger face. And then I'm going to extrude it downwards like this. Okay, and then left click to confirm. And I'm going to grab it a little bit more down on the Z-axis, and then I'm going to add a loop cut. So click Ctrl R to add a loop cut. And then you need to go to face select and select the face there, and click E to extrude it into the cylinder or the actual Gatling gun. And then I'm going to select the faces on both the bottom and the top like this, and click G set to grab them on the Z-axis, because I'm going to make the handles a little bit thinner. So select this face as well, and then click G set to grab it on the Z-axis again. Okay, I think that looks better. So now we need to select the faces on the inside of the cylinder. So go to wireframe mode, set, and then hold in shift to select both of the faces, and then add mean crease. Then you want to add a subdivision surface modifier again, and like this, increase the subdivisions to 3 on both the view and the render. And as you see now, we have the handle, and now we need to duplicate it so that we have 2 of them. So we need to go into the modifier, add a new modifier, and then click mirror. And we're going to mirror the objects. So make sure you have the right cylinder. You can always give names to the objects so that you don't have to look through the objects in the scene to find out what the name is. But for now, I just found out it's number 4. So I'm going to mirror the handle on object cylinder number 4. Okay, and it works. So maybe you should give names to all your different parts, but I didn't in this tutorial. Okay, I'm going to save the file, give it a new name. I'm going to call this one Gatling number 7. I usually like to give them number names so that you can see which part is which in your process of making the objects. Okay, so let's start adding materials to the objects, and I'm going to add a glossy material. So select the glossy material, and then go down to color, and you can just copy the color code that I have to get the same color as me, or you can just add your own color. You can make it blue, whatever color you want. So just copy my color code, as you can see on the screen, and then increase the roughness to let's say 0.3. And then you want to select the walls, and I'm going to scale them up a little bit. So click Shift Set to only scale them on the X and the Y axis. And then select the lamp, make it into a sun, and increase the size to 1. Then click Use Nodes, and make sure the strength is even stronger. So I'm going to make it strength 5, and click G to grab it. Let's grab it a little bit upwards. If you want to see what it looks like in rendered mode, you can just click Shift Set to go into rendered mode. But I don't think I will add all of the color materials in rendered mode. Actually, I think I will go into, let's go from solid mode to material mode, which is going to show the colors but not like render them with samples, which takes a lot of time. So just copy the same material to all of the parts of the Gatling gun. You can obviously add other materials if you want to, or add other colors, but if you want the same result as me, just use the same material for all of the parts of the Gatling gun. Okay, I think we need to edit the cylinder a little bit. As you can see, it's too short on, I think it's the x-axis. So yeah, it's on the x-axis. So we need to grab this face on the x-axis. You can either extrude, or you can just grab it. So click G to grab, and I'm going to grab it on the x-axis. Left click to confirm. I think it looks better now, so we can keep adding the material. Let's add the color, the gold material, and the same here, material 001. 1. You can also give it a name if you want to. I don't usually give names because, I don't know, I just don't. But I think it looks good now. As you can see, we have the gold material on all of the parts of the Gatling gun. And it's time to start editing the rest of the scene. So let's go back to solid mode and select the walls. And go to edge select and select the whole circle of edges. And then click G set to grab them on the Z axis. I'm going to add a new material to the walls and the floor as well. So I'm going to change it from diffuse to, let's make it subsurface scattering. And that kind of gives the, like the transition from the walls to the floor, kind of a line, which looks better. And the color difference, it has kind of a color difference between the walls and the floor. So let's just save the file. And I'm going to name it Gatling tutorial number 8. And the next step is to make the Gunsight. And I actually decided to speed up this process because I actually used 10 minutes of real time to make this sight. And it's really easy to make. You just need to add a cylinder, then rotate the circle, and then make it 3-dimensional. So you want to go into edit mode and then just extrude it, and then add mean increase on each side to make it round. And just make sure it's just the lines around it. And then you just go into edit mode again and select the edges on each side of the circle and click F to fill. So F to fill between two edges. So you just select the edge up here and then down there and click F to fill them. Then you just repeat the process and use F to fill the different faces. If you have any problems making this site, you can just ask in the comments below, but I think you'll be able to make it pretty easy. It's not that hard if you just know how to select edges and clicking F to fill the gap. You'll be able to make this site, so I think it's easy enough for you. Okay, and now it's almost done already. I might just grab it a little bit on the x-axis and then grab it on the z-axis, and it's not going to look, I think we need to scale the lower part as well. The main reason why I usually don't make modeling tutorials is because it takes a lot of time, and you also have to do the same actions over and over and over again. So it gets kind of boring to make commentary about modeling. So I think modeling usually is perfect for speed arts and like quick speeded up videos. So what I'm trying to say is that when I make modeling tutorials, I try not to make them too repetitive and make you do the same actions over and over and over again. So let's just add the material, the gold material. I think I'm just going to give it a name because it kind of looks stupid to have material 001 over and over again on all the different objects when it's so easy to change the name. But I think it's starting to look good. Let's go to number 0 to go into the camera. So go to object mode to select the camera. And then to go into fly cam mode, you want to click Shift F and then move around with W, A, S, and D. Okay, let's click N and T to remove the side menus. I might just adjust the gun sight a little bit on the Z axis. So I'm going to select both of them and click G set to grab them on the Z axis. The rest of this tutorial is actually going to be about adding the holes to the barrels, because as you can see on the scene or the model, we don't actually have holes through the cylinder that we added, like overlapping the barrel cylinders. So we need to add some holes in between to make it look like an actual gun that has a hole going through the whole barrel. So let's just save this file and start editing the barrels. Just go up to File, save as, and let's give it a new name. We're going to name this one number 9, so get tutorial number 9. What I found out was that we actually need to delete these existing cylinders to make some new ones, because subdivision surface and adding holes doesn't really work well together. But first we need to separate the barrels. So let's select the barrels and apply the modifiers, and then we're going to go into edit mode. Then click P to separate by loose parts, and then just repeat the process on the other barrels. We need to apply the array modifier first, and then go into edit mode, click A to select everything, then click P and separate by loose parts. And do the same on the last two ones. Apply the array modifier, go to edit mode, select everything and click P and separate by loose parts. And then we need to delete these old cylinders. But I'm not going to delete them yet. I'm actually going to add some new cylinders and add a 3D cursor. So left click to add a 3D cursor, and then I'm going to add a cylinder on top of it, and just make sure it has the same dimensions. So I'm going to make this a lot higher on the vertices, and then click RX90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis, and then just copy the scale and the dimensions of the old one, because this one is not going to have subdivision surface. We added a lot more edges to the object or the cylinder. So I'm trying to make it the same size as the old one. I'm going to grab it a little bit on the z-axis. You get the point. We're just going to scale it down to the same dimensions as the old one. So we need to scale it down on the, at least grab it a little bit on the x-axis. And now it's time to scale it down on the y-axis. You don't have to make them like, doesn't have to be completely accurate. But I'm going to select the last one or the old one and delete it. And then we need to select the one on the back as well. And then just delete it and just copy this one and click Shift D and grab it on the y-axis and put it about the same place. And then we need to add the same gun material, the golden gun material. I'm kind of tired of the golden color because I've used it in so many tutorials, but this is the last one with the gold material. Okay, so let's add a modifier, and we're going to add a Boolean modifier, and click Operation Difference, and then just make sure to add the cylinders that you need to Boolean, which is basically a way to add holes through the mesh. And as you can see now, you're able to select the hole inside and delete it. So select the face and click X to delete. And as you see now, we have the first hole. And we need to repeat this process many times. I'm going to show you how to do it with the first ones, and then I'm going to speed up the process because it's going to take some time. Use the Boolean on the not the barrel but the actual cylinder, and then do it by the difference. And as you can see, I'm doing it on all of the different cylinders, and then just deleting the faces like this. So let's add the Boolean modifier on the cylinder behind it. So add a modifier Boolean. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like Boolean. And then you just add the barrels and operation by difference and apply. And then you have the hole. So I'm just going to save the file and name it cat tutorial number 10 in case Blender crashes or something. You never know. And then we just need to add a Boolean modifier many times. So the other barrel by difference, apply, and do the same thing again, Boolean, object, select the barrel cylinder, and operation by difference, apply. I'm going to speed up this process and do the same with all of the barrels to the cylinder so that we have the holes we need for this Gatling gun. Okay, so let's go into wireframe mode with set and then just select the faces and delete them to make the holes. And again, you need to repeat the process on all of the barrels until you have the holes you need. Okay, that's it. Now, this isn't obviously a completely accurate Gatling gun, but I think it looks good and it works for like simple animations and whatever you want to use it for. So I'm going to save the file, so click Save As, and I'm going to show you how to fix the render settings before we start rendering. So let's click numpad 0 to go into the camera, and then we need to go into rendered mode, so click Shift Set to go into rendered mode. And now it's time to start fixing the render settings. So click on the camera icon, and then increase the resolution quality to 100%, and make sure you have a higher sampling value. So I'm going to make it, let's say 200, and yeah, just 200. And then just scroll up and click render to render the scene. This is part 1, and the next part is going to be the animation itself. So look forward to that. It's going to come out next week. So thank you guys for watching and subscribe.